I used to think nothing could ever break my family until my son-in-law stood up right in the middle of his own birthday dinner, surrounded by laughter, by toasts and applause. He pointed at me and said, "You're just a worthless old woman. Nobody wants you here." The whole room fell silent. No one said a word, not even my daughter. She just stared down at her plate. I didn't scream, I didn't fight back, I just gave him a quiet smile. The next morning, he signed the order to remove me from the very company my husband once built with his own hands. I said nothing. I just went home and froze every account he was using still under my husband's name, and that I used to believe nothing could ever break my family until the day my son-in-law stood up in the middle of his own birthday party. Amidst the laughter and toasts, he pointed straight at me and said, "You're just an old woman with no value. No one wants you here." No one said a word. The room went dead silent. My daughter lowered her head, staring down at her plate. I didn't shout. I didn't fight back. I just gave a faint smile. The next morning, he signed the order to remove me from the very company my late husband had founded. I didn't say a word. I just went home and froze every account he was using under my husband's name, and that was only the beginning. That day, sitting alone in the cold kitchen, I thought about my family, the family I once believed was a dream come true. Mia, my oldest daughter, successful, sharp, always perfect from her gentle smile to the way she shook hands with partners at fancy events. Then there's Lucas, her husband. I used to proudly call him my son. Polite Charmin never forgot my birthday, always made sure Mia's gas tank was full. And then there was Amelia, the quiet one. She never spoke much. Always like a shadow, silent at dinner, quiet in the corner, quietly observing. I used to think she lived in her sister's shadow, but now I begin to see maybe she was just waiting for the lights to go out so she could finally see things clearly. Sunday morning, my kitchen smelled of toast and melting butter. Lucas was laughing, sleeves rolled up, pouring orange juice for Mia. Mia giggled, hair in a bun, barefoot. Amelia sat across from them holding a glass of milk, quietly watching Lucas. "And you, Mom, soft-boiled eggs like always?" Lucas asked sweetly. I smiled. Yes, like always. But in my mind, there was a storm. Last night, while cleaning my husband's old office, the room that had collected dust for nearly a year since the funeral, I hadn't expected to find anything. It was just something to do, to ease the emptiness. I dusted the shelves, straightened old papers, flipped through yellowing contracts. Then I tugged on a stuck-bottom drawer barely opened for years and found something hidden deep inside a thick folder shoved between the cracks. Not forgotten, clearly hidden. I dropped into the chair, heart pounding. Inside were bank statements, with the logo of Alexander Corp., the company my husband co-founded with a partner. After his passing, he left me full legal authority, allowing me to step into any company matter at any time. But I was grieving. I trusted the man my daughter chose to marry. I handed control to Lucas, my son-in-law. I flipped through the pages, millions of dollars withdrawn. Not once, not twice, repeatedly. And one name showed up again and again, like a siren in the night, Lucas. I didn't sleep at all. I made coffee at 2 a.m., let it go cold, paced the hallway in silence, listening to the crackling sound of ice beneath my feet. A vivid feeling that everything this house, this family, was standing on thin ice. And I was the first to hear it cracking. The next morning I smiled. I cooked breakfast like always, fried eggs, poured milk, folded napkins. But my hands trembled so much I dropped the spoon. I blamed it on lack of sleep. No one suspected a thing. That evening, the whole family sat down to watch a movie in the living room. Lucas, like always, laughed loudly, completely at ease, his arm draped casually over Mia's chair. I watched him closely, every expression, every move smooth and rehearsed, like a play he'd performed 1,000 times. I took a breath and asked, trying to keep my voice calm, "Lucas, is everything okay? At the company lately, I heard from a few partners that the financials seem a bit off." He turned toward me with that familiar smile. "Don't worry, Mom. Just a few new investments. I've got everything under control." I didn't let it go. Investments? I pressed my eyes locked onto him. Lucas paused, then shrugged. "Yes, I was just reallocating some funds. The returns will come quickly. Nothing to worry about." At that moment, the flickering light from the TV cast shadows on his face, briefly masking the flicker of panic in his eyes. I turned to Amelia. She was watching me. She said nothing, but her gaze said everything. We didn't need words. I knew she knew, and she knew I knew. The truth wasn't buried anymore. It was surfacing like a body rising from deep water. The very next day, I called the head accountant. His voice was full of concern. Are you certain you didn't authorize that emergency fund withdrawal 2 days ago? $450,000. The system shows approved Lucas Mariget. My blood ran cold. I never signed it. I was never informed. But the digital signature was there, clear as day. I didn't make a scene. I didn't report it to the board. Instead, I quietly worked through 3 nights straight, alone in the third-floor study, under the soft yellow light buried in stacks of files. I checked every number, every bank statement, and finally I found the money had been transferred to a company with an unfamiliar name. But the address, I recognized. It was an apartment in District 2. Lucas once said he was helping a friend invest. That night, a storm rolled in early. Wind slammed against the high-rise windows. I texted Lucas to meet me in the boardroom at 7 p.m. The office was nearly empty. The rain had started. Lucas walked in still in his white shirt tie, loosened from the day. Before he could greet me, I slammed a thick folder down onto the table. Explain this. Is that your signature? Lucas looked down, squinted at the papers. A beat of hesitation. Yes, I signed it, but I didn't do anything wrong. I smirked and stood straight. Transferring company money to a private entity without report or approval, you call that right. I was reallocating funds. Just short-term real estate investment. I had it all calculated. The money will come back. And if it doesn't, is this company yours now? Lucas began to lose his cool. His voice rose. I'm doing this for the company. Who else cares about profits day to day? You're just an old woman with no value anymore. Everything in this company is mine. You have no place here. I slammed my hand on the table, rage swelling inside me. But I care about integrity. And you, Lucas, don't have any. He leaned toward me, voice sharp. I'm tired. You think I married Mia out of love? I married her for the company, for power, for status. Got it. The door behind us clicked open. We both turned. Mia stood there, still holding her keys. Her face was pale. What did you say? Lucas stepped back, lips moving but no sound. Mia, let me explain. But she didn't stay to listen. She turned and walked away, her heels echoing down the dark hallway. I ran after her, calling her name, but she didn't stop. The elevator doors closed before I could reach her. Outside, the rain poured harder. Lightning tore across the night sky. And I knew. There was no going back. That night, Mia locked herself in her room. No sound, no light from under the door. The whole house held its breath. Amelia sat at the top of the stairs, clutching our white cat as it trembled. I stood in the kitchen holding a glass of warm water, now gone cold, staring at the envelope Lucas had left on the table. His handwriting was rushed, the name Mia shaky and uneven. I didn't touch it. Lucas had left the house without a word. The sound of the door shutting around 1 a.m. felt like a blade slicing through something fragile inside me. The next morning, I went to the kitchen earlier than usual. Pale sunlight streamed through the windows, landing on the chair across from mine. Amelia was already there, still in her old pajamas, hair messy, holding the letter. Her eyes were red. On the table sat a cold cup of cocoa and a piece of toast she hadn't touched. You read it, I asked softly, taking the cup from her hand. She didn't look at me, only nodded. You know now, don't you? She took a deep breath, her voice shaky. He said, he didn't mean to, but he knew he was wrong. He said he was tired and didn't want to pretend anymore. I sat down across from her. How long have you known? I asked. Amelia looked up. For the first time, her eyes held both anger and pain. Since he started hiding his phone. Changing his computer password. I had a feeling, but I wasn't sure. I thought, if I pretended not to know, maybe it would all just go away. I placed my hand gently over hers and gave it a small squeeze. I used to think the same. But silence Sometimes it's what allows the deepest roots of wrong to grow unchecked. We sat there a long time, saying nothing more. Outside, the wind began to stir. Rain was coming. That evening, Mia opened the door the moment I knocked. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her face was pale hair, messily tied back, pajamas wrinkled. The room smelled faintly of wine, and Edith Piaf's voice played low and mournful from a Bluetooth speaker. "Come in, Mom," she whispered so quietly I barely heard her. I stepped inside, hung my wet coat on the hook, and wiped my hands on a towel. An old habit: when others fall apart, a mother must stay strong. Before I could speak, her phone rang. Mia froze. She didn't want to answer, but I told her to face it. "Be brave." She answered, her voice cracking. "What do you want?" Lucas didn't dodge it. His voice was heavy like stone. "I don't want to fight anymore. I just want this to end." Mia nodded slightly. "Good. So do I." He added, "I'm leaving the city. Tonight." The call ended. Mia sat in silence. The whole room held its breath. Then she whispered, "He never loved me, did he?" It was all a lie from the beginning. I walked over, rested my hand on her shoulder, and felt the slight tremble in her frame, and I thought to myself, Lucas is no longer part of this family. Not to me, not to my daughter. That night I made tea and sat with Mia on the small balcony. The rain fell steadily. The wind lashed hard. We said nothing. I handed her the tea. She took it with both hands. And in the rain, all we heard was the sound of quiet sighs. A few days later, I returned to the company as if I had never left. But inside me, a fire burned, not to destroy, but to protect what still remained. I reviewed every clause. In Alexander's old safe, I found a certified copy of the company's 2019 charter. One paragraph made my heart race. In the event of financial misconduct, the founding chair has the authority to revoke any executive power with a majority board vote. I chuckled. Lucas didn't know this, and it was the one lifeline left for the company and for my name. That Monday, a board meeting was held in the 15th floor conference room. Lucas's seat sat empty. The tension was thick. I didn't waste words. I called for a vote to revoke Lucas Mariguette's interim CEO title due to financial misconduct. Evidence was sent via email. Today I submit the originals. I placed a thick folder on the table. The annex still smelled fresh. A few moments passed, some exchanged glances. 3 members, Lucas's allies, opted out of voting, citing the need for further review. I expected that, but 6 of the remaining 9 voted yes. Effective today, I, Charlotte Thomas, resume full executive authority over Thompson Holdings. I struck the gavel. No applause, but I knew my hands were back on the wheel. After the meeting, I returned home. Mia had left town without a word. I called her, but didn't try to stop her. I knew exactly where she had gone, the villa by the sea. It was where Alexander used to retreat when the world grew too loud. Some pain can only be healed in solitude. One morning, while cleaning out the basement storage, Mia found an old safe hidden behind stacks of technical manuals. No passcode, just a rusty lock. It took her nearly an hour to open it. Inside, there were 2 items: a dark brown leather notebook, its edges worn thin, a handwritten letter unmistakably in Alexander's script. Mia read the letter first. Her eyes widened with every line. "Mia, if you're reading this, it means your mother is in danger. If you ever meet someone named Gavin Moore, do not let him near her. Absolutely not." The word absolutely had been underlined twice in red ink. Hands trembling, Mia opened the leather notebook. Among the scattered notes were sections bordered in red, Alexander's personal way of marking something important. One page read 2019, Gavin Moore, shareholding agreement 30%. Must remain confidential, not to be filed with company records. Mia froze. That name, it had never appeared in any official documents, not recently, not ever. She snapped photos of everything, sent them to me. With a message. "Do you know this man?" I had barely finished reading her message when my phone slipped from my hand. That Thursday morning, the company headquarters began like any other day, coffee machines humming, stock tickers flashing on the LED screens. A man walked in, tall, salt and pepper hair slicked back, a perfectly pressed navy blue suit, his white pocket square folded with surgical precision. He placed a card on the receptionist's desk. "Gavin Moore, I have an appointment with Mrs. Charlotte Thomas. The receptionist blinked, checked the schedule blank. I'm sorry I don't see your name listed for today. I didn't schedule through your secretary, but I'm sure once she sees what I've brought, she'll want to meet me. His voice was calm, unshaken. He pulled a thick envelope from his coat pocket, sealed in red wax. The stamp embedded in the wax was the old crest of Alexander Group, the kind that could only have been made back when Alexander was still alive. 10 minutes later, I received a message from my assistant. A man named Gavin Moore is here. Says he has urgent documents. Waiting in conference room 3. That name felt like a punch to the stomach. Gavin Moore. A name Alexander had once scrubbed from the company's system. A name that hadn't surfaced at any shareholder meeting in years. I straightened my jacket, took a deep breath, and walked in. Gavin stood when I entered, polite as if this were a casual business meeting. Mrs. Thomas. An honor to finally meet the keeper of Alexander's legacy. I didn't sit. My tone was ice. I don't recall setting an appointment with you. You didn't, but I sent documents. I believe they're convincing enough to warrant 15 minutes of your time. He calmly opened his leather briefcase and slid a black hardbound folder across the table. I glanced at the bolded title Share Transfer Agreement, 30% signed by Alexander Thompson. Date August 2nd, 2019, notarized. Certified copy. My heart skipped. The red stamp was authentic. The signature was Alexander's, no question. Gavin sat back, hands folded, eyes calm like a predator that doesn't need to chase it, just waits. Alexander once told me, if there's one man in this world not to trust, it's Gavin Moore. Gavin smiled gently. He didn't deny it. But the thing is, he did trust me. Once. And that one time created a legal bond you can't erase. I felt every vertebra in my spine tighten. This wasn't internal politics. This was a long-planned ambush. That evening, in Alexander's old library at our countryside villa, Mia, Amelia, and I gathered around the dusty wooden table. The brown leather notebook lay between us. The scent of aged paper, old wood, and fresh boiling tea filled the air heavy like a seance. Mia flipped to a page marked in red. This one says Gavin, renegotiation meeting on August 2nd. Do not inform board. I drew a sharp breath. Renegotiation. He was kicked out after the Marina project scandal. Amelia snapped photos quickly, then flipped to older entries. I thought he was just a partner. The next page had a messy scrawl in blue ink. 2018, co-founder Gavin Moore. 30% initial commitment. Directly after another page slashed in red ink, Marina project violation. $8.2 million missing. Decided to remove from system. Purged internal records. I froze. Alexander covered it up, for the board's sake, but that man, he nearly sank the company. Mia looked up, her voice trembling. Then why did Dad re-sign a deal with him? None of us had an answer, but a terrible feeling crept in, a warning, like the scent of smoke before seeing the flames. That afternoon it rained hard. Mia called, breathless, panicked. Mom, there's a letter from Lucas. A message from an unknown number. Attached was a photo of a handwritten note. I opened the image. It was Lucas's handwriting. No mistake. Mia, I know everything is about to come out. I'm not a good man. But there's something you should know. Gavin isn't an outsider. I saw him with Alexander 1 month before his death. They fought. I was ready to leave the company after that, but then he died in an accident. I don't believe it was an accident, and I was threatened if I talked, I'd be next. My hand shook, my heart pounded, my mind reeled. From the other end, Mia screamed, Mom, if this letter's real, Dad's death might not have been an accident. I couldn't speak. I clenched my fingers tight. My eyes locked onto one line, as if it were glowing. I was threatened if I talked, I'd be next. There was no doubt anymore. Alexander didn't just leave behind his shares. He left behind a ghost and a warning no one ever truly heard. A few days later, I sent Gavin a short message. No name, no fluff. 8 a.m. tomorrow. Alexander's old office. Don't bring a lawyer, no question mark, no threats. But I knew he'd come. Gavin Moore never passed up a chance to sit in the throne, especially when he believed the crown was already his. On the appointed day, I arrived early. Everything was just as Alexander had left it. The solid walnut desk, the handcrafted bookshelves, a tiny liquor cabinet with just 2 bottles of Lafroig, and the large painting of him on the wall standing atop the rooftop on the day the company launched. His gaze once looked toward the future. Now it felt like he was staring straight at me. I was already seated when Gavin arrived exactly on time, not a wrinkle on his suit, not a bead of sweat. He stepped inside, scanned the room, and gave me a polite nod, the kind that masked ambition in a thin veil of charm. But his eyes, those were a predator's. After 20 minutes of terse back and forth, each sentence pulled tight like a bowstring about to snap, he suddenly leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and stared at me with a look that dared me to flinch. I think he paused for dramatic effect, inhaled slowly like he was ending a chess match. It's time to stop this tug-of-war. I didn't answer, just tilted my head slightly. Every word he'd said since walking in played on loop in my mind, waiting for dissection. He went on, voice sharp and smooth like a blade. We both know where we stand. You hold 55%, I hold 30%, and the remaining 15% belongs to spineless shareholders. The picture's clear. Cooperation is the only path forward. No exclusions, no need to push anyone out. I smiled, a faint, unreadable smile, not agreement, the kind you give after closing a very important folder for good. I leaned down and pulled open the drawer. My fingers brushed against a sleek black object, an ordinary-looking pen. Harmless, until it wasn't. I set it gently on the table right between us. The motion was calm, but the room turned cold. Gavin's brow twitched, his jaw ticked. His eyes darted to the pen as if it had grown fangs. I pressed play. A soft click. Then his own voice filled the room. Cold, calculated, unashamed. I've got a signed copy of the contract. I don't care why Alexander signed it. As long as it's legal, I win. There was a pause. Then his voice dropped darker, heavier. If you don't agree, let's just say accidents can happen a second time. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was crushing, like the stillness before a thunderstorm breaks the sky. Gavin didn't move, but his jaw tightened. Muscles flexed under his collar. His eyes flicked to the pen, then to the door. He was calculating, measuring exits. I folded my hands on the table, tapped a single finger in rhythm like a countdown clock, ticking. You're right about one thing I said, calm, steady. This isn't a tug-of-war anymore. It's the moment the rope snaps. No raised voice, just eye contact. And words measured like the final nail in a coffin game's over Gavin. That recording's already been sent to the police. And if you've paid attention, they're standing right outside. The door opened. Amelia walked in holding up a USB. All the financial evidence has been handed to the financial crime unit. We've been tracking him since the board meeting. Mia appeared behind her, no longer broken. Her eyes steel, and it looks like this time you won't get away. The door flung open. 2 uniformed officers entered, badges raised. Mr. Gavin Moore, you are under arrest for forgery, money laundering, witness intimidation, and attempted corporate fraud. The click of handcuffs was louder than any gavel. The once suffocating silence of the boardroom was shattered, now replaced by the echo of boots orders and staggered breaths. Gavin rose from his chair. The flawless gray suit couldn't save him now. He didn't resist, didn't shout, didn't call a lawyer, but his hands trembled as they were cuffed behind his back, and his eyes locked on mine, sending one final message. This isn't over. Within hours, the media exploded. Gavin Moore, the financial ghost who vanished from global records, officially arrested on multiple felony counts. Headlines blazed across screens. Social media roared. Investigative journalists dug up dirt from Switzerland to Southeast Asia. Old contacts, missing persons, silent partners. They came out of hiding, ready to talk. I scrolled through hundreds of comments, but one line stopped me. Cold secrets don't stay buried forever. I clicked the anonymous profile, no photo, no name, but a link to an encrypted file, an audio clip, a man's voice, hoarse, weak, but unmistakable. It was Alexander. I no longer trusted Gavin, but he had something on me, something I couldn't risk being exposed. He forced me to re-sign the partnership agreement. If I didn't, Mia wouldn't be safe. I stopped breathing. The recording continued. Apartment 503, downtown Chicago. A black hard drive. The password is my wedding date with her. I called the lead investigator immediately. Less than an hour later, a special task force had broken into the long-abandoned apartment. Inside the dust-covered room, just as Alexander had said, they found the hard drive. And inside it, nearly 20 gigabytes of data, recorded phone calls, emails, images, and copies of falsified financial documents. Gavin had built a multi-layered money laundering network. He used Alexander's trust, his position as co-founder, to quietly manipulate the company's cash flow, pushing Alexander into a corner, forcing him to choose between the safety of his family and the legacy he'd built. In the end, Alexander chose to protect his family. He signed the revised contract, relinquishing control over the company's intellectual property to Gavin. And just 1 week later, Alexander died in a traffic accident that never sat right. But now, with the forensic report reopened, the truth began to unfold. The truck driver who caused the accident, a former employee of a logistics company secretly co-owned by Gavin. That driver died just a few months later in a house fire, ruled as an electrical accident. Suddenly, all the missing pieces began to align. 48 hours later, interrogation room. Gavin refused to speak. To his lawyer, he repeated one phrase over and over. I've got dirt that could burn this whole system down. Let's see who has the guts to touch me. But what he didn't know was that we already had everything. Surveillance photos, voice recordings, restored emails, audit reports, and most damning of all, a short video clip secretly recorded by Alexander 2 years earlier. It captured Gavin's first threat. If you don't sign over control, Mia's going on a very long vacation. Permanent, you hear me, Alex. Then that chilling smile, soft, but cold as steel. That same week, I received word from police. Lucas had been caught trying to flee. A month later, his trial began. The media called it one of the most shocking corporate scandals in New York this year. The trusted heir, a young CFO, embezzled millions from the very company founded by his late father-in-law. I sat silently in courtroom 5. Same hard wooden bench, same sterile white lights, sharper now under the weight of truth. Before me stood Lucas, gaunt. His expensive suits replaced by an orange prison jumpsuit. No watch, no charm, just vacant eyes. The judge delivered the verdict. The defendant, Lucas Margaret, is sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for corporate embezzlement and the unauthorized withdrawal of over $1.3 million from internal accounts. Lucas said nothing. No plea, no emotion. Only when his attorney lightly touched his shoulder did he finally look up, not in anger, not in regret, just emptiness. He turned his head as if searching for something. Maybe it was Mia. The following day, shareholders' assembly. I stood. The room was full, investors, board members, every seat taken. No panic now, only anticipation. I'm not holding this company for myself, I said, voice steady. I'm holding it so Alexander Thompson, the founder, is never used again. I saw Mia in the front row, quiet, but her eyes had changed, no longer the eyes of a woman broken by betrayal. Now they belonged to someone who had taken back control. After the meeting, she approached me. Softly, she said, I'm coming back to the company. I blinked. Didn't ask why, but still I whispered, because of your father. She looked straight at me, calm, certain, no, for me. And because I refused to let another lie survive in this place. That night, I returned to the room where Alexander once sat, reading reports alone each evening. The portrait of him was still on the wall, but this time, I looked at it like staring into the deepest part of my memory. I stepped closer and rested my hand on the wooden frame. You had secrets, but I won't let anyone bury what you once stood for. I whispered, as if speaking to a distant spirit. No one lives forever in truth. But at some point we must choose, stay silent with the lies, or stand with the truth when everything else falls apart. I turned to leave, but just before stepping out, I said one more thing. I wasn't sure if it was for Alexander or for myself. And sometimes truth isn't meant to forgive. It's meant to protect the ones who never had a choice. 1 month after Gavin Moore's arrest, on the outside, things appeared stable. The news cycle had quieted. Shareholders returned. Negotiations resumed. And for the first time, the financial reports weren't cluttered with vague miscellaneous entries. People breathed easier, but I didn't, because I knew an empire can't survive on grief and one woman's endurance. What this company needed now wasn't an old matriarch barely holding the wheel, but leaders who could walk with the world not behind it. That Tuesday morning, the skies finally cleared. I entered the main boardroom, the room that had witnessed too many life or death decisions. At the table, Mia and Amelia were already seated. No stiff suits, no formal presentations. Just button-up shirts, hair tied back, laptops, open, coffee still steaming. There was something different in the air. I stood at the head of the table, no slides, no binders, just one sentence. It's time I stepped down. You two, choose the next leader. There was no immediate reply. Mia glanced at Amelia, a look I had waited years to see trust. Mia nodded slightly, then turned back to me. There's no need to choose Mom. We'll lead together. No more single title. No more quiet signatures made behind closed doors. We'll be a transparent board. And her voice held steady. There will be no more names hidden in documents. I stayed silent. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry, because I had just witnessed the one thing I'd prayed for a generation that didn't inherit power, but inherited the courage to choose right. 2 months later, the company had a new name, TS Second Foundation. The Thompson legacy was retired. No more eagle logo. Now a minimalist structure, a symbol of rebuilding. The executive suite on the top floor torn down, no more leather chairs, no more shaded glass separating executives from employees. Mia, in a gray hoodie, sat among the sustainable logistics team. Stylus in hand, she mapped out supply routes on a giant screen. If this segment goes straight to Haiphong Port instead of looping inland, we save 8 hours. I need numbers from every checkpoint. Amelia, once the quiet girl at the end of the table, now led the legal department. She reviewed each clause of the company's charter scrap, all the loopholes. No more special rights, no more back doors. Triple-level sign-off, all digital. Someone asked, "Aren't you being a little harsh?" Amelia smiled. "No room for ghosts. If there's no darkness, nobody needs a flashlight," Mia added without turning, "and no one should live the life our mother did." I'm Charlotte Thomas, no longer in charge. I moved to a quiet home outside the city. After a simple breakfast toast and black tea, I sat in the garden pruning Alexander's old plants. Everyone had died once, left forgotten, but I saved most of them. I didn't start over, I simply healed what was still alive. One afternoon, Amelia came home from work. She didn't say much, just handed me a faded envelope tucked inside The Art of War while cleaning out Alexander's old library. I opened it, just a few rushed uneven lines in Alexander's unmistakable handwriting. Let it carry the names of those who dared to rise, even if it meant letting go of what hurt them most. I read it over and over again, and for the first time in years, when I thought of Alexander, I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel betrayed, I just felt grateful. That night, sitting in the garden under soft golden lights filtering through the leaves, I looked up at his old photo on the wooden wall, and I whispered, almost too quietly to hear, "You left a mess behind, but thank you." Because in that chaos, I found 2 daughters who now walk toward the light. Legacy, I realize, isn't about what we preserve. It's about what the next generation is willing to clear away to begin again. There's no absolute truth, but there is one absolute choice to stop choosing lies. And what about you? If you were in this situation, would you have stayed silent or spoken up from the start? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, because maybe, just maybe, your story could be the light someone else needs while they're still trapped in the dark. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next story. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I'll see you in the next chapter where the truths we thought were buried finally get the voice they deserve.